Hey everyone, let's go through this Unit 5, Lesson 5 practice assignment. Gonna try to move kind of quick, see if we can keep this video a little bit shorter than they are sometimes. So order the numbers by value from least to greatest. So if you're thinking about a number line, lower numbers are always to the left, right? Like the further negative you go, the smaller the number is considered. And as you go to the right, I think this is reverse, so I guess on your, this is right. The further right you go, the bigger a number is considered, right? So let's just visualize a number line in our head. We can have it down here. I don't know why I tried to get such a weird angle. Hold on, let me try that again. It's weird, it just seems angled today. So if this is 0, you got bigger this way, you got smaller that way. So keeping that in mind, let's see here. Let's find the biggest number first, and then we'll put it at the bottom because it wants least at top, which is kind of weird. All right, the biggest number, well, it's got to be a positive one, so it's going to be one of these two. 5.2 is bigger than 5 halves because 5 halves is only 2.5. So this one's going to go on the bottom. And then the other positive one's got to be the next biggest, so I'll put it there. So now we just got to arrange these negative ones. So since the further left you go, the smaller the number it is. Another way to think about it is the bigger a negative number is, the smaller it's actually getting. So this is the biggest negative number, so it's really the smallest number. Let's see here, -2/5. 2/5 is a smaller number than 2. So in other words, this one's closer to 0. This one's going to be further to the left. So I think this is the correct order here. Let's move on. All right, so order these expressions by value from least to greatest. So I'm just going to solve them all, or evaluate is really the right word, I should say. And then we'll list them. So let's hear -5 minus -4. I like to think of this as plus positive, so I'll change both of those to plus signs. Now this is going to equal -1. And then here we've got -4 plus +5, and so that's going to equal +1. -4 minus 5, I like to think of that as plus -5. Notice I'm changing all these to addition just because it makes more sense to me when I do it that way. And so this one's going to be -9. And then here we got 4 minus -5. So I think of this as plus positive. And this one equals 9. So this one is going to be the second least. This one here is going to be the least. So when I move them around, the drawings are going to get all messed up. But it's going to be -9 is least, -1 is second least, 1 is third least, and then the greatest is this 9 here that will stay there actually. So go there. Ugh, now the drawings are messing me up because they're there. I gotta clear them. All right, so -9, -1, 1, 9. Yep, I think we got it. Just make sure I didn't mess that up real quick. -9, -1. Yeah, I think we're good. All right. Is the solution to -2.5, sorry, 2.7, -2.7 plus x equals -3.5, positive or negative? So the way I would think about this is like vector models on a number line. I don't know why those drawings came back. Get out of here. Let's say we were drawing on a number line, and here's our 0, and this will be 1, -1, I mean, -2, -3. We'll throw -4 over here. And we drew our first vector to -2.7 because that's where the first value I see in this equation. And now we want to add some other vector. We don't know what that vector is, but we always start it where the last one ended and get to -3.5. So that would be like about here. And so all we're being asked is this positive or negative? Well, since I had to draw the arrow in the negative direction, that means it must be a negative vector. So the answer is negative. I'm gonna click on negative and keep on moving. Oh, explain how you know. So an explanation you could give there, could describe the vector model I just drew. Starting at 2.7, negative 2.7 on the number line, you have to go negative to get to negative 3.5. You have to go in the negative direction. So that would be a good explanation. All right, select all of the true statements. Negative 2 is less than negative 5. That is not true. Remember, to be less than means it's further to the left. I always forget that the picture is reversed. So I guess this is left when you're looking at it on the video. So this one would not be true. 2 is less than 5. That one is true. Negative 5 is less than negative 2. That is true because negative 5 is further to the left. Negative 5 is greater than negative 2. Not true. And negative 2 is closer to 0 than 5 is. That is true. Negative 2 is only 2 spaces away from 0, while 5 is 5 spaces away. Okay. Determine the value that makes the equation true. Negative 9 minus something equals 3.5. Now this one's pretty tricky. So let's draw a number line. And I'll put negative 9 way over here. So let's be negative 9, negative 8, negative 7, negative 6, negative 5, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1. So this will have to be 0. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. That should work for us. That has everything we need on it, right? Okay. I'm not going to bother labeling everything. We can count without the numbers on there. And so if we were doing this with a vector model, our first vector would go from 0 to negative 9. And then we would need some other vectors starting here to go all the way to 3.5 because we want the final answer to be 3.5. So we want it to look like this. So we just have to figure out what vector is that? Like how far are we going here? Well, what it's really asking you is what's the distance between negative 9 and 3.5? So you could figure that out, right? How many spaces are there between negative 9 and 3.5? And you could do that using that distance formula where you go 3.5 minus negative 9 and then take the absolute value. Or you can do it the other way, negative 9 minus 3.5 absolute value. Both of those will get you the right answer. Or you can just count the length of this vector that I drew. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So obviously 9 units to get from negative 9 to 0. And then 10, 11, 12, 12 and a half. And that's the same thing you get up here, right? 3.5 minus negative 9. Well, if you did plus positive, equals 12.5. This one also comes out to 12.5 because it's negative 12.5, but then you take the absolute value. It makes it positive 12.5. So lots of different ways to get the answer of 12.5. Oops, wait. I almost messed something up. So the question says you have to subtract some number to get from negative 9 to 3.5. This vector is an addition, right? We always add vectors. So we've got the fact that it's 12.5 spaces away, but in order for this to come out positive, this needs to be minus negative 12.5, right? If we did this, if we did negative 9, oops. If we did negative 9 minus 12.5, right, by putting 12.5 in where B is, and there's a minus sign right there, that wouldn't work. This would get us negative 21.5. So we need negative 9 minus negative 12.5, because then minus negative becomes plus positive. So I almost messed that one up. We're going to put negative 12.5 there. And we'll clear all this stuff and move on to the next question. Determine the value of each expression. So we just have to add or subtract this stuff. All right, well, here we have 11 fourths plus 9 fourths. Luckily, the denominator is already the same for us, so we can just add the top numbers. This is 20/4. I just did 11 plus 9. 3.2 minus 2.6. With these, in my head, I like to think about it as 32 minus 26. Like, just don't even think about that decimal point, and then just replace the decimal point at the end when I have to come up with my answer. And so 32 minus 26 is 6. But both these numbers have one digit place and then the decimal point to the left. So that makes me feel like the answer should be 0.6. All right, next we got 5/8 plus 3/2. You can't add fractions if they don't have common denominators. They're broken into different pieces and the pieces don't count the same. So instead, we got to write them both where they have the common denominator, but luckily the 2 at the bottom of 3/2 goes into the 8 that's the other denominator. So we really only need to change one denominator. I'm going to rewrite the fraction 3/2 with an 8 on the bottom by multiplying the top and bottom by 4, and I get 12/8. Now I can add that to this 5/8, and I get 17/8. All right, and lastly, we got 12 minus 3.6. I don't know, there's lots of different ways you could do this one. Old school way would be to line it up like this. Right, this is 12.0. And then you got to do some carrying because you can't take 6 away from this 0. So put a 1 here. And so now this 0 becomes a 10. And we got 10 minus 6 is 4. And, well, we can't really do 1 minus 3, but we can do 11 minus 3, right? This is really just an 11. So you get 8.4. All right, and let's move on. On Monday in Minneapolis, Minnesota, it was 0 degrees outside. On Tuesday, it was 15 degrees colder. So what was the temperature on Tuesday? Well, you start at 0 and you go down 15 degrees, you should wind up right here at negative 15 degrees. All right, next it says, on Monday in Minneapolis, Minnesota, it was 0 degrees outside. Tuesday was 15 degrees colder than that, so we already figured that out on the previous question. That's negative 15. But then Wednesday was 5 degrees warmer than it was on Tuesday. Okay, so we started 0, then it went down to negative 15 on Tuesday, but then it went up 5 degrees, right? Warmer is up, and that gets us back to negative 10. So I think the answer on this one's going to be negative 10. All right, an equation puzzle. There's 2 of these. I think I'll help you with one and leave the other one as a challenge for you to figure out without my help. So, but you'll see the process at least on this one. So we want to make it so each of these equations comes out true, right? And we got to either put a plus or a minus in each of the boxes. So negative 3 blank 5 equals 2. Well, if you subtracted 5 here, you'd wind up at negative 8. So that's not going to be true. Pretty sure we need that plus sign there. Negative 3 plus 5 equals 2. All right, and then we can go down here. Negative 3 blank negative 2 equals negative 1. Well, if we added here, that would be incorrect because you'd have negative 3 plus negative 2. That's negative 5. What I think we want to do is minus the negative here. And so negative 3 minus negative 2 equals negative 1. All right, here we got negative 2 blank negative 1 equals negative 3. That's an easy one. You just add those, right? When you're adding negative numbers, they just add the same way positive numbers do, but you keep a negative sign on there. All right, and then the last one going down this column, 5 blank negative 1 equals 6. Well, we don't want to add negative 1 because 5 plus negative 1 would be 4. We need to subtract negative 1 because that's like adding positive 1, and that gets us 6. So I think we're good. All right, I'm going to leave that last one for you to try to figure out. It's the same thing, though, I'm pretty sure. Just Put the minus or the plus signs in there the way it should work. Yeah, this one's a little bit trickier because you got to think of two operations in the same thing. So like for this one, I would probably subtract the 2 because 1 minus 2 is -1. But then if I add this one here, that gets me back to 0, right? 1 minus 2 is -1 plus 1 equals 0. So there you go. So I got you started. I'll let you try to figure out the rest.